Well, good morning. Lo and behold, it is 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. I know some of us are in different time zones here, but my goodness, welcome. Welcome to First Universalist, wherever you are, whenever you are. It is so good to be together this morning. Before the beginning of our service today, I just want to thank everyone who was able to come out yesterday for our memorial service for David Malone, to get to celebrate his life and honor his life. I know that it meant a lot to the Malone family to have so many folks come from this congregation and to come be a part of it. And also, before we get started, I do not know who came to church this morning and shoveled out a walk from my parking spot to the door, but whoever that was, thank you. It got me a little misty. So please, if you could let me know who you are, I would love to actually officially thank you. But thank whoever shoveled out the walk so I could get into the building today. It was really touching to have that extra sense of care. Charlie did it. Charlie Kortzel, you get the church prize today. Thank you so much. I really appreciated that. It just felt so nice to feel cared for in that way. Especially with all this snow on the ground. Thank you, Charlie. I so appreciate that. All right, so we are going to get started this morning with a prelude. You may recognize this song as it was a pop song of the late 90s, early 2000s, Beautiful by Christina Aguilera, played on the piano by our fabulous music director, Brock Cheswold. I'm telling y'all, we have one of the best music directors in the denomination. So welcome, welcome, welcome to the First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the spirit and to serve the community. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. And whatever your relationship to your body and to the body of the person on the screen next to yours and the person on the screen next to that, we welcome you. We welcome all of you. It is good, it is good, it is good to be together this morning as the sun is shining and coming right through. If you are here for the first time or the second time or even the third time, we especially welcome you. Thank you so much for finding our virtual worshiping community here at First Universalist Church. We have a visitors form that can be found in the chat. Our usher will paste that in there this morning. Please feel free to click on that link to that visitors form so we can welcome you beyond just what we can offer you here in this virtual sacred space. And we want to also just invite you, if you are here for the first or the second or the third time, please, introduce yourself here in the chat. We are a warm and welcoming bunch, and we'd love to have the opportunity to welcome you here in this virtual space. As some folks have already been doing, we've been offering one another greetings. If you haven't yet done so already, please pop into the chat and offer a good morning, a hello, a hey, how are ya, a hi, I'm here. We would just love to see who is here and hear from you. Your voice is really important to us, and your presence this morning is deeply important to us. So welcome. Welcome to worship at First Universalist Church. Our opening hymn this morning is hymn number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, based on words from the poet Rumi. Let us join hearts and voices in singing together this morning, recognizing that even as we are singing a song muted in our own home, we are creating a collective song across our city of Rochester, across our country, and across the world. So let us sing together hymn number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
Come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Good morning. We enter into this worship service together, bringing our whole selves here. The parts of us that we love, show off, and highlight, as well as the parts of our bodies we'd rather no one looked at. The places we shamefully want to hide away. Each week, we bring our whole selves here. Each week, we cannot escape the fact that the body we have is our own. Whether changed to better fit who we are or transformed to fit a mold with which we have a complicated relationship. We are here together as one body, each playing a part, each valued, each different, each respected. Come, each and every part of you. Come, let us worship together. As we light our chalice at First Universalist Church and in your own homes, will you join me in saying our chalice words in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit. May we reach out to serve our community. Please join me in our affirmation of faith, followed by our doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. Our offering this week goes to support the Baden Street Settlement. Baden Street Settlement improves the quality of life for neighborhood children, youth, adults, and seniors by providing programs, resources, and basic needs to address the effects of poverty while building self-sufficiency and community. The organization takes a holistic approach to meeting individual needs in a collaboration with other agencies. We are so excited to be supporting this important initiative and so grateful for your support this morning. Please click the link in the chat to give online to First Universalist Church, or feel free to send a check to the church. Thank you.
Good morning, my friends. Today's story is Bronterina by James Howe and illustrated by Randy Cecil. Bronterina had a dream. I want to dance. Madame Lucille's Dance Academy for girls and boys. But you are a dinosaur, Madame Lucille pointed out. True, Bronterina replied, but in my heart I am a ballerina. She is too big, and she does not have the right shoes. Madame Lucille wondered what to do. She had never had a dinosaur as a student before. Dinosaurs were rather large, and this one certainly did not have the right shoes. But then she felt Clara and Jack tugging at her skirt. Oh, please, they pleaded. Madame Lucille looked into the dinosaur's eyes. What is your name, my dear? Bronterina, Bronterina Apatosaurus. I even sound like a dancer, don't you agree? Madame Lucille did agree. How could she not? Welcome to Madame Lucille's Dance Academy for girls and boys, she said. Please try not to squash the other dancers. Music, Magnolia, she commanded the piano player. As Magnolia began to play, Madame Lucille turned her commands to her students. Plie, releve, crash. Arabesque, jeté, crash. What a graceful dancer you are, my dear, Madame Lucille exclaimed. Bronterina blushed. On the outside I am a dinosaur, but in my heart you are a ballerina, cried Jack and Clara. She still doesn't have the right shoes. In the weeks that followed, look out! Help! Hey, watch your tail! The piano! Oh, Bronterina, cried Madame Lucille, I'm afraid you are too big to be a ballerina. You barely fit in my studio. And how in the world will a male dancer ever lift you over his head? I could do it, Jack shouted. No, my dear, said Madame Lucille with a sigh. You could not. I told you she was too big. A tear fell from Bronterina's eye. Downcast, she turned to leave. Wait, Clara called out. Don't go. My mother has been working on a surprise for you all week, Bronterina. She is bringing it today. Whatever are you talking about? Madame Lucille asked Clara. Just then, Clara's mother appeared at the door. You must be Bronterina, she said, holding out the surprise. I hope these will fit. Well, now she has the right shoes. Bronterina beamed. They fit perfectly, she cried. I am a ballerina, or I would be, if only I weren't so big. Oh, fiddlesticks, said Madame Lucille. Why didn't I see it before? The problem is not that you are too big. The problem is that my studio is too small. And so the whole class went off to look for a studio big enough to hold all of Bronterina's talent. Too small? Too small. Still too small? Still too small. I have an idea, said Jack. Moo. Now, Madame Lucille's Dance Academy had room for everyone, and she also became aware of binary gender language and became Madame Lucille's Outdoor Dance Academy for children and dinosaurs and cows. I want to dance. Then you must, my dear. And Clara's mother became an entrepreneur selling shoes of all sizes. And it all began with a dream.
Oh, thank you so much, Reverend Michelle, for that story. I wish that it were true for all of us, but I love it. Thank you so much. Not only is our fabulous Minister of Religious Education, Lifespan Faith Development, a great storyteller, she had a wonderful idea. For this month, as we explore the theme of embodiment in February, we are sharing some videos of our children here at First Universalist sharing a body trick with us. So this morning we have a video, an offering from Reynolds of a body trick that she did. So here you go. I hope you enjoy. Well done, Caitlin. I don't think I could do that, but it's amazing. It's so wonderful to get to see our kids this month. Thank you. I want to invite you now into this reverent time of sharing in the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can certainly place a hand over your hearts to be able to listen to the joys and the sorrows shared here from a more heart-centered place. As I place these stones into a bowl of water, I will read aloud the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community as you share them in the chat. All are invited to share your joys and sorrows in the chat. As you know, all voices and all perspectives are valued here, and we want to hear from the community gathered in this sacred space. So let us join in this important ritual of joys and sorrows. I share a concern and support from Dick and Joyce Gilbert for friends in the frozen South. And we are certainly holding all those in this community whose families have been affected, whose friends have been affected by what we're seeing going on in the southern part of our country. Jim Milch shares that Kathy and I, his wife, got our second vaccine dose last week. We are planning a trip to hug our grandchildren in Brooklyn. Yay! What a joy. Marty Eggers also shares she got her second COVID vaccine yesterday, and we are joining in that joy for all of us who are able to have that happen for us. Nancy Giddy also shares in that same joy. Wow, both Nancy and Carl, it looks like. What a joy. From Steve Searles, my wife Clara's procedure to remove a stent in her common bile duct was successful, and she's feeling better. So thank goodness, yay. Sending good thoughts to Clara and to you, Steve, and to your kids. I'm sure that is a huge relief. We're seeing again a sadness for the suffering in Texas. From Steve Searles, also a sorrow. His cousin in Texas lost her greenhouse because of the colds. So sharing in the sadness around that. From Kelly Scott, Kelly is recovering well from emergency dental surgery this past week. Thank goodness, glad you are recovering well. Kathy Flynn shares that in spite of the snow, she collected a car full of food yesterday, which is for our Nestor Street Food Cupboard project, where we come together once a month and donate food in the parking lot. Kathy, thank you so much for your continued service there, and thank everyone who showed up. Jacob Santos, wishing all who observe a meaningful Lent. Thank you, Jacob. And a concern. His grandfather's cousin's wife, who is like an aunt to him, is losing her memory. Jacob, so many of us know what it's like to have a loved one lose their memory in this community, and we are just holding you in our hearts and in our prayers and holding your whole family. That can be so difficult. For Elizabeth Osta, my friend who is struggling for the thought of transition to assisted living, that is hard. Certainly holding that concern here and holding your friend in our thoughts, that's a tough concern. From Trish Gallagher, a concern her daughter Kelsey's mother-in-law has some sort of heart issue and is in the hospital. Awaiting test results, maybe just stress. Trish, we are holding you and Kelsey and Kelsey's partner in our thoughts and prayers today. It is hard to wait for the news. Oh, Tess, joy for the beautiful celebration of David Malone's life yesterday, sharing in that joy. For Melissa Parrish, a beautiful celebration of music last night at the Gospel Concert fundraiser for the Civil Rights Heritage Site. Thank you all the musicians and everyone who attended. That was an amazing gospel concert last night. Thank you. It was good to be there with you, Melissa. And from Shirley Malone, thanks to all of you who sent cards for our family and those who came yesterday to the celebration of life service for my husband, David. It was rewarding to see everyone, relatives from other states and all the friends and relatives local. We look forward to seeing everyone in person with the hugs that will bring. Shirley, we are just sending you some extra love in these days. And from Lisa Gwinner, happy that my second cataract surgery is this week, and we are sending you good thoughts for that surgery, Lisa, hoping all goes smoothly and well. Let us just take a deep breath as I will drop this just one final stone into our bowl to represent all the joys and the sorrows left unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. Each and every single one of us comes here out of a mixture of the joys and the sorrows that make up the days of our lives. And so we just hold that and honor that today. May all be held in the heart of love. Today, as we do every Sunday, we will light a white candle to acknowledge that we are a community affected by the grief, the loss, the fear, and sometimes even the hope of living through a pandemic together. Dear ones, may this candle be both a beacon of hope as we keep on hearing more news of folks being vaccinated. We keep on hearing more news of people getting well, getting better. And may it be a reminder that we are not alone. Amen. This month of February, as we are exploring embodiment, I want to just invite you into a body prayer with me. So if you would like to remain seated, and even if you need to remain seated, go for it. If standing is available to you and you'd like to do so, you can feel free to rise, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And also, if you'd like to keep your camera on, that's great. And if you want to turn your camera off, that's also perfectly acceptable this morning as we begin with this body prayer. So let us begin with our hands at heart center. I invite you to place your hands over your heart, taking in a deep breath and connecting with this heart space. Take a pause here to check in. What is in your heart? What is on your heart? What are you holding here? Take a moment and move our hands up to our heads, acknowledging the thoughts, perhaps racing, or the contents of our plans for the day. Let us pause here for a moment to get still. To still the mind. To see if we can tune in and listen. To quiet our mind for just a moment. Let us place our hands now on our lower belly, space of vulnerability and fear, container of the gut instinct and our motivator. we pause for a moment to honor the instincts we live by, to listen to our passions, to check in and see what we are holding here. And we place our hands on our hips, part of our body that grounds us and connects us to the earth. For some bodies, a source of aching. For other bodies, a source of creation. For other bodies, the very base of our movements through the world. For other bodies, a quiet space to just rest. Let us check in here. And let us just hold out our hands in front of us, offering gratitude for these magnificent instruments. These parts of us that bring our attention to making and doing and creating. These parts of us that hold the hands of others and hold us. Sensitive yet rough, calloused and scarred, gifts to those we love and to ourselves. These hands are deeply sacred. Now let's go through and check in with our bodies once more guided, and then once more in silence. We begin by checking in with our heart and our breath. We continue to find a stillness in our minds. We seek our passion and our instincts. We honor what grounds us. We give gratitude for the gifts of our hands and for our bodies. Let's go through the motion silently together. As we enter into a time of shared silence, let's take a moment to reflect on both the gifts and the challenges of being a human being living in a body. Let us take a moment, if you felt like there was a place where you really needed to keep checking in, take a moment to check in there too, as we take time to share in some important yet often imperfect silence. Our hymn of contemplation this morning is hymn number 1009, Meditation on Breathing.
I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Our reading this morning comes from fat activist and blogger Aubrey Gordon, who's better known as Your Fat Friend. She recently published a book through Beacon Press called What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat. I just got it in the mail on Saturday. This is an excerpt from an article she released in May of 2020 called Your Fat Friends, Hear the Way You Talk About Gaining Weight in the Pandemic. She writes, more and more memes are popping up online about gaining the quarantine 15, the COVID-19, or fattening the curve. More and more of us are publicly expressing our anxieties about how being in self-isolation will change our bodies. For some, that fear of a change in our bodies is born of eating disorders or body dysmorphic disorder. For others, it is the simple fear of losing a sense of control over our own bodies. Yes, many of us are afraid to gain weight, but many of us are also already fat, and we hear the way you talk about our bodies. I know what it's like to fear gaining weight, but I also know what it's like to be fat. I know what it's like to read texts and posts from thin people who insist they'll come out of the quarantine weighing 300 pounds, well below my own weight. I know the string of hearing thinner folks bemoan the size of their bodies, unwilling to confront what they're implying about bodies like mine. I know the anxiety-riddled jokes about appearing on My 600-Pound Life from people who have never faced the discrimination and ridicule that many very fat people face every day. As someone who struggles with recovery from my own eating disorder, I know the pain of needing to process an eating disorder or a changing body. I also know that processing publicly or with people without knowing if they're in the headspace to hear about it, at worst, helps trigger others' eating disorders, and at best, leads them back to intrusive and shameful thoughts they've tried long to escape. And often, unintentionally, the ways in which we share those insecurities can send powerful messages about which bodies are worth having, whose bodies are worth loving, and what becomes of people who are fat. In these cases, I'm going to end up fat isn't a simple statement of fact. It's a warning of a terrible impending fate. It's a quiet and vicious punishment not only to the person saying it, but to everyone within earshot who is fatter. Publicly proclaiming our anxiety about or discontent with weight gain can contribute to a culture that demonizes and scapegoats fatness wherever it finds it. And when you say those things, your fat friends and your fat followers hear you. We see you. And whether or not you're ready to acknowledge it, we know you're talking about how terrible it would be to look like us. When we hear you talking about your revulsion at bodies that look like ours, how could we not be hurt? How could we not be heartbroken? Of course, all of us should have supportive spaces to process our changing feelings and bodies in isolation and beyond, but that doesn't nullify our duty not to harm others in the process, either by triggering their eating disorder or body dysmorphia, or by insulting their body, implicitly or explicitly. Before I begin my sermon this morning, I just want to thank all of you in this congregation who sent me resources this past week upon hearing our sermon topic of challenging fat hatred. I have not, in the recent history that I can remember, received so many resources before a sermon, and so This is a conversation that's alive for us in this community. I'm not here this morning to shame anyone for shaming the body of another. I actually don't think that that's an effective tool. I'm here this morning to remember and to remind us that if we are going to talk about embodiment in the month of February, by necessity, we must talk about fat hatred. Fat hatred thrives in the normalization, in not being interrupted, in a society-wide acceptance in these so-called United States that to be thin means to be healthy and desirable, and to be fat is to be unhealthy, unattractive, and warrants being insulted. I want to make explicit today at the outset of this sermon that I am using the term fat hatred today instead of fat phobia. It is an important distinction and one I first heard made by Adrienne Marie Brown and her sister Autumn Brown in their podcast, How to Survive the End of the World. Fat phobia refers to a fear of fatness, becoming fat, or what fat even means in our society. But they were calling on us to also think past fear to the actions taken by some to explicitly hate on bodies who are fat. Not hatred solely born out of fear, but also hatred that people feel justified by because they believe that fat bodies are to blame for their own fatness, or because they think that in being hateful or shaming, they are helping someone become more healthy. It is a form of oppression and hatred rarely interrupted and disrupted. As our reading makes explicit, fat hatred is often sanctioned, not seen as impolite, and comes with societal encouragement. As Unitarian Universalists, we uphold the inherent worth and dignity of all human beings. We commit our faith and our lives to living on equal ground in the present moment. Fat hatred is a form of oppression that intersects with race, class, misogyny, gender, ableism, homophobia, and transphobia, as it centers in the body. And we all share an experience of having a body. It affects each and every single one of us. It affects those of us who are thin and who have been regularly asked if we have been eating enough. It affects those with eating disorders and those without. It affects those who are fat and not seen as thin enough. Theologically, we are committed to valuing diversity in its many forms, including body size and shape. And yet so many of us have received messages that it is okay to comment on another person's size, to ask about a fat person's health, to uphold policies, I just learned about this past week, that vaccinate people for COVID-19 that have a BMI or a body mass index scale requirement, denying health care to those who literally do not fit into a certain height or weight requirement. My God. Again, grounding ourselves in our theology, we are both Unitarian and Universalist. As Unitarians, we believe in the goodness of humanity, in the goodness of this creation, a creation that has always included fat people. Our theological ancestors have not always honored this call, participating in formational history of Christian diet culture and the Christian diet culture movement, believing the best thing for our bodies is to treat them with a certain reverence by ingesting only particular foods. It would be my joy and delight to preach about some of that history at some point. I'm not going to go too far into it today, but oh man, there's a lot of scholarship. Yet I think we can agree that if the creation of human beings, if humanity at its very core is good, then bodies of all sizes are also good. As Universalists, we are called to a larger love that does not exclude or cast out. We are each one of us loved by something larger than ourselves, such as God, a spirit of the universe, or a common humanity shared amongst us. We are the theological inheritors of universal salvation, the belief that all will be saved. And I do not remember in there where it said that all thin people would be saved, or where it said in the Bible that St. Peter was awaiting at the gates of heaven with a scale, keeping folks in line to weigh us all in. No. To believe in universal salvation is to believe that humans of all sizes and shapes are loved by our Creator, no matter how we look, what we have done, or how we have been treated. I am looking at a reading here in our sanctuary facing me now that says, "I am come that they might have life and have it more abundantly." This piece that Audrey Gordon writes about, which bodies are worth having, which bodies are worth caring about, whose bodies are worth loving, this has something to say to us in the here and now. Who are we to deny that love to one another and to ourselves? If our theological mandate is to value humanity and to love one another as we are loved, how are we called to be in relationship with our own bodies and to the bodies of others? Yet it is a common aspect, yes, of course, it is a common aspect of being human that each one of us lives in a body. And I would assert that an additional common aspect of being human is that each one of us here has received a negative and shameful message or messages about being in the very body we inhabit. Whether it was compliments about the way you looked that reinforced unhealthy behaviors, or something someone we love said to us about the way we looked, or even ways we were encouraged to hide our bodies away, or not to even relate to our bodies at all. Each one of us has been shamed around how our bodies look. And disproportionately, those amongst us who are fat have been shamed the most. Disproportionately, those amongst us who are fat and who also hold additional oppressed identities, marginalized racial identities, gender identities, living with a disability or different ability, marginalized class identities, that shaming has gone even deeper. And I want to just take a moment to pause and to share with you this morning that one of our members actually texted me this image of Stacey Abrams, which felt like it related a bit to some of what we're talking about this morning, and to, of course, that intersectionality. She said, "I'm not going to change my hair," which a consultant suggested I do. "I was not going to fake a boyfriend. If I find him, great, but I wasn't going to pretend that he existed or create some notion of relationship. I wasn't going to wait until there was a more opportune moment for someone with my complexion," which was also a suggestion. She also didn't feel the need to lose any weight. "I refuse to let someone tell me that I am less than because they think my body is more than me." I feel like so much this just really highlights some of the intersections of identity, ways that it's about fatness, but it's also about more than that: skin color, hair texture, relationship status. I really appreciate Stacey Abrams' strength in articulating these pieces. Unless we make it solely about marginalized identities, I will say, as someone who grew up with a father who was fat, I learned so much about how our society treats fat people, from the way they treated my straight, white, male, cisgendered, middle-class dad. People felt entitled to make fun of him. We would meet up with friends who he hadn't seen in a while, and these friends would comment on his weight over dinner. I watched the ways these comments would strike silence and shame in my father. I watched as people who claimed to care about him, and as complete strangers who did not know him at all, made discouraging comments about his body. I watched what they said, and I learned about how I should view my own body. How I should view my own body as a fat child, as a fat young adult. I learned about what others expected my body to look like. And I learned to be silent in the face of discouraging comments about my own body. I don't say this to blame my father, actually. He did the best he could. I say this to point out how the fat hatred from others affected him, and how that effect also trickled down to me and into my young mind, and was instilled at a very early age. As we seek wholeness for ourselves and for those around us, and I mean seeking wholeness as a sense of claiming the fullness of our being as integrated, valuing each and every part of who we are. To challenge fat hatred must be a piece of seeking this wholeness. And to learn how to challenge fat hatred outwardly through holy interruption and disruption has to be a part of seeking that wholeness, alongside decolonizing our own minds of the negative messages we have received about our own bodies, in order to move more fully into loving our own bodies. And it really is, at its root, about our own relationship to the body we live in. I know from my own self-examination that any judgment that I have about another begins inside my head, my heart, and yes, even my body, with a judgment I have about myself. What I say about the body of another person is in direct relationship to how I feel about my own body. To root out fat hatred, we must first release it from the ways we judge our own bodies. If our aim is to get to a place of wholeness for others and ourselves, the beginning is how we navigate the dicey and sometimes challenging terrain of loving ourselves. Truly falling in love with our own bodies in their complexity, in their size, in their abilities and disabilities, and the ways we must change them in order to match our gender and have our form fit what is inside our head. Which is an entirely different thing than going on a diet or giving up certain foods in order to be thin. I really want to make that distinction clear. To try to manipulate the size of our bodies has at its roots, its roots in control and domination over our own bodies. It has in its roots judgment of what already exists. It has at its roots comparison to other bodies in an unhealthy way. To shift our bodies to match what we know about our gender is an act of holy surrender. It is to agree with how we are meant to be. It is to fall ever more deeply in love with ourselves as we are, as we truly are, rather than trying to change who we are for the approval of others or even for our own approval. To attempt to diet and starve our way to a different size begins from a place of not loving ourselves as we are. To attempt to work towards thinness denies the worth and the wholeness of fat people. Which brings me to Aubrey Gordon's words, which are really about the ways we talk about our own bodies and the impact that has on others. If we believe that every person has inherent worth and dignity, including ourselves, then why is it okay to speak ill of our own bodies? Why is it okay to talk about the ways we need to lose weight in ways that are self-deprecating? And if we are here to honor the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, I hear Gordon calling us back to that web. I hear Gordon as she is saying, and often unintentionally, the ways in which we share those insecurities about our own bodies can send powerful messages about which bodies are worth having, whose bodies are worth loving, and what becomes of people who are fat. In these cases, I'm going to end up fat isn't a simple statement of fact. It's a warning of a terrible impending fate. It's a quiet and vicious punishment, not only to the person saying it, but to everyone within earshot who is fatter. She is inviting us to reflect on where our own words and sentiments about our own bodies have an effect on others. She is inviting us to examine our own shame and insecurity, to recognize that that shame and insecurity can be harmful to others when processed publicly without thought. Can we embrace our interconnectedness enough to recognize when our own words about our bodies are harmful to others? Can we begin to heal our relationship to our bodies for the good it will do for us, as well as the good it does for humanity? Are we willing to go to the length of self-reflection and holy interruption that challenging fat hatred calls us to? I believe each and every one of us here is strong enough to do that. I believe we are desiring of wholeness for ourselves and for one another to the point that we would be willing to go inward and do some deep change, deep spiritual, deep embodied work. May we each be reminded today of the impact of our words and the impact of our own shame. May we be reminded that in this world we seek to value humanity in its many diverse forms. May we be called toward the deep inner work of self-love. And may we be empowered to disrupt and interrupt fat hatred whenever and wherever we see it, especially if it is coming out of our own mouths. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. As we continue to dig ever deeper into the love that binds us and the love that keeps us together, let us sing our closing hymn this morning, hymn number 95, There is More Love Somewhere. We invite you to remain muted and to sing out joyfully from home, again creating a collective song from wherever we find ourselves. Let us sing together this morning. As we extinguish our chalice flame, both there here at First Universalist and there in your own homes, let us join in our chalice extinguishing words together. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in, until we are together again. Dear ones, I'll invite you to turn your view to gallery view so that you can look upon the faces of all of those who are gathered here this morning for worship with us and in this community. I'll invite you to reach out your hands. This embodied ritual we take part in every Sunday. We have not stopped taking part in this pandemic, even though we cannot be next to one another. And if you are joining us over the phone, I'll invite you to just place a hand over your heart and think of someone that you love. Dear ones, as you go forth from this place, may you embrace a different way of loving yourself. May you turn that eye and that ear and that heart space inward. May you know that you are loved truly and really just as you are. And may you take that love and bring that love elsewhere through holy interruption and disruption of fat hatred, of discrimination, of all forms of oppression. May you bring that love wherever you go, and may you be strengthened by the love of this community. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. As we enjoy our postlude from our fabulous music director, Brock Chesvold, I'll invite you to type into the chat, "I commit to challenging fat hatred." Let us join in that commitment together as we enjoy our postlude from our fabulous music director.